Welcome to the First Player Token Podcast, a short podcast for folks who enjoy playing board games with family and friends. I'm your host, Derek Bruff. In this episode, we're taking a look at a great family game called Kingdomino. Kingdomino is published in 2016 by Blue Orange Games. It was designed by Bruno Cathala and features art by Cyril Bouquet. In Kingdomino, players take on the role of monarchs building their kingdoms. In the game, kingdoms are made of colorful chunky tiles, each of which is a rectangle made of two squares, kind of like a domino. Get it? Kingdom plus domino equals Kingdomino. I picked up the game a couple of years ago, and it's been a hit with kids ages 5 to 11 and with their 60-something-year-old grandfather. In Kingdomino, players compete for domino-style tiles showing various kinds of landscapes: fields, forests, lakes, swamps, and so on. They use these tiles to assemble their own individual kingdoms. Each tile has two landscape squares, sometimes with crown icons on them. Those crowns help you score points. More on that in a minute. Your kingdom starts with a single square and a little cardboard castle to sit on it, which is why my 6-year-old calls Kingdomino the castle game. You add tiles to your kingdom, making sure that at least one square on each new tile touches an existing square in your kingdom of the same landscape: field to field, forest to forest, lake to lake, and so on. The castle square is wild, so you can add any tile next to it, but as you build your kingdom, you'll run into constraints on the kinds of tiles you can add. Each round, 4 tiles are drawn randomly and sorted in numeric order. Each of the tiles has a number on the back between 1 and 48, with the higher numbers attached to generally better tiles, like the ones with crowns. Players take turns claiming the tiles. The higher the number on the tile you claim this round, the later in the turn order you'll claim a tile in the next round. You can take that really great tile now, but you'll get last pick in the next round. This makes for some nice tension from round to round, as players decide whether to claim something useful in the short run or position themselves to have better options in the future. By the end of the game, each player will have a 5x5 square for a kingdom, or something close to it. Sometimes you can't fill out the whole square because of how you've placed your tiles along the way, and you may have a few gaps in your kingdom. Then, everyone scores their kingdoms using what I think is a pretty clever scoring system. For each continuous region of the same landscape type, you count the number of squares in that region, then multiply by the number of crowns in that region. For example, a forest with 6 squares and 3 crowns will yield 18 points, while a mine with 2 squares and 4 crowns will score 8 points. This scoring system is what drives your choice of tiles during the game. You want to create big forests and big lakes and big fields in your kingdom while picking up enough crowns along the way so that they score big points. But you're competing with other players in the tile market, and you have to select tiles that you can actually add to your kingdom given the placement rules. Kingdomino makes for a fun family game. It moves quickly, with short rounds, and no real need for long-term planning. You can play a full game in 20 or 30 minutes, and the game scales well from 2 to 4 players. The box says ages 8 and up, but our 6-year-old plays it and has a lot of fun. There's no reading required, which helps, but a little multiplication sense helps with strategy, so older kids will be more competitive. That said, it's a great game for teaching kids about multiplication. If I have 2 crowns on a region with 4 squares, that means you count those squares twice. 4 plus 4 is 8. If you have 3 crowns on that same region, you count the squares 3 times. 4 plus 4 plus 4, which is 12. It's a nice way to visualize multiplication. If you have a kid who is just learning to multiply or about to learn to multiply, I highly recommend Kingdomino. We actually used it for math class when we were homeschooling the elementary school kids this spring. I find that Blue Orange Games, the publisher of Kingdomino, makes attractive games, and Kingdomino is no exception. The game is colorful, with entertaining little illustrations on the tiles. I'm fond of the lake tile that has what appears to be a sea serpent just under the surface of the water. and also the field tile that has a scarecrow on one side and all these tiny crows on the other keeping their distance. The illustrations are pretty tiny. I'm not at the stage yet where I need reading glasses, but if I were, I would need them to see these fun scenes. But you don't need to see them to play the game. All the landscape tiles and the crowns are really easy to distinguish. Most of the theme of the game comes through those tile illustrations. But as you play, you do get a little feeling of being a monarch with rival kings and queens, as players try to scoop each other to get better tiles. And there's some satisfaction at the end of the game, seeing your kingdom in front of you as you score your points. The game comes with cute little monarch playing pieces and cardboard castles, and the 6-year-old likes to make up stories with these bits while she's waiting for her turn. You can pick up Kingdomino for under $20 American. I recommend the Target exclusive version, which comes with a sturdy cardboard tower for holding and dispensing tiles. It's practical and has a nice table presence. Kingdomino has an expansion called Age of Giants that I haven't played, and a sequel called Queendomino that I have played. Queendomino takes all the mechanics of Kingdomino and adds a few more, making for a longer, more complex game. I've just played it once, but maybe after a few more plays, I'll review it here on the podcast too. That's it for this episode of the First Player Token podcast. See the show notes for a link to my website, where you can see a few photos of Kingdomino in action. I love taking photos of board games, and you can see more of those photos on Instagram, where I'm First Player Token, all one word. I've been your host, Derek Bruff. Thanks for listening. Now it's time to play some games.